Okay, so next on the list we have the ferns. Let's go down and talk about ferns. So ferns also exhibit an alternation of generations. All of our plant categories are going to have that going on in their life cycles. Let's get going here. So ferns are called the seedless vascular plants. They do not produce seeds. Instead, they produce spores. So we say they are seedless, but they do have vasculature. So they're a little bit more complex than the mosses, than the bryophytes. In that sense, they do have a vascular system. So we call them the seedless vascular plants. Okay, so first major bullet point, let's just say that explicitly. Ferns do have vascular tissue. And if you're familiar with ferns, they grow a lot of times in the forest, like under the trees and shady areas. They can get relatively large. They are not super small necessarily, and that ties in with something we've already talked about. So why do mosses stay short, close to the ground? One of the big reasons is because their cell walls are not hardened with lignin. Okay, so here's one of the big differences about ferns. Ferns do have lignin. Lignin hardens the cell walls, and because of that, since they are hardened with lignin, because of that, they are able to grow taller than the bryophytes did. They grow taller as a result. Okay, they are seedless. They do not produce seeds. They're seedless. They reproduce instead through using spores. And in the case of the ferns, we'll draw a sketch in just a minute. The sporophyte generation is actually the larger plant. So sporophyte generation is the larger, more obvious plant. So when you picture a fern like growing in the forest, you're probably picturing a sporophyte. More obvious plant. Okay, and then one thing that they have in common with the bryophytes is that ferns also need water in order to reproduce, and that's for the same reason. That's so that the sperm is able to make it over to the egg. So this is something that is similar, I'll say that, like bryophytes. The ferns need water to reproduce. Okay, let's try for a picture, a sketch of the two different plant forms for the ferns. Let's see here, we're using blue for sporophytes. So I'll get blue. Blue is going to be the larger, more obvious plant. Ferns are beautiful. I wish I could do a better job of drawing ferns. Ferns have these like beautiful leafy fronds, which I can't draw. You can look up pictures of ferns if you don't know what they look like already. And so this is going to be a sporophyte plant, and it's got lots of nice leaves all over the place. More leaves over here. These leaves have vasculature inside of them, so think like little leaf veins. Allows the plant to conduct water, but also nutrients. So photosynthesis is going to be going on in these leaves. And then the sugar that's made gets transported through the vasculature back down to the other parts of the plant and stored in the roots. Okay, so this is the sporophyte. Sporophytes are diploid, 2N. And then let's use red for the gametophyte. The gametophyte is very small, and oftentimes it might even be like just barely under the surface. So a lot of times where ferns grow, there might be a lot of leaves or pine needles or things that sort of fall to the ground. And sometimes it ends up that the gametophyte sort of gets buried. So a lot of times we don't even see it. The gametophyte is going to be very small, something like that. This is the gametophyte plant, which is haploid. Okay, there we go. So that's the ferns.